Satan's role as the ruler of hell is one of the most enduring images in Western culture. The image of a red-skinned, horned figure seated on a throne of fire, surrounded by tortured souls, is deeply embedded in literature, art, and popular media. However, this portrayal is not based on scripture or early Christian doctrine. In fact, the idea of Satan ruling over hell is largely a creation of human imagination, shaped by centuries of theological interpretation and artistic representation. In Christian doctrine, hell is not depicted as Satan's kingdom. Hell is described as a place of punishment created and governed by God, where the wicked are cast after death. Satan is not portrayed as the ruler of this realm, but as one of its prisoners. The notion that Satan governs hell developed over time, influenced by medieval literature and evolving cultural attitudes toward the nature of evil and rebellion. To understand how Satan came to be viewed as hell's ruler, it is necessary to examine his origins. In early Jewish tradition, Satan was not regarded as an independent force of evil. The word Satan originates from the Hebrew term Satan, which means adversary or accuser. Satan functioned as a member of God's heavenly court, acting as a figure who tested human faith and integrity. In the book of Job, Satan appears before God and is permitted to test Job's faith by bringing suffering upon him. Satan's role was not that of a rebellious angel or an opposing force, but rather that of a divine prosecutor tasked with exposing human weakness. Similar figures appear in earlier religious traditions. In Zoroastrianism, the figure of Angra Mainyu represents a spirit of chaos and evil that opposes the good god Ahura Mazda. In Canaanite mythology, Baal was sometimes depicted as a force of disorder and corruption. These early influences position Satan as a figure associated with temptation and adversity, but not as a ruler or an autonomous power outside of God's authority. Christianity redefined Satan's role, expanding his identity from a tester of faith to the embodiment of cosmic evil. In the New Testament, Satan is described as a malevolent figure actively working against God's plan. In the Gospel of Matthew, Satan appears as a tempter in the wilderness, offering Jesus power over the world in exchange for worship. This event establishes Satan as a figure who seeks to corrupt humanity and lead it away from God. In the Gospel of John, Jesus refers to Satan as the prince of this world. This title suggests that Satan holds influence over human affairs and worldly systems. Paul reinforces this concept in his letters, where he describes Satan as the leader of spiritual forces of darkness and the corrupter of human nature. In the book of Revelation, Satan is depicted as a dragon who leads a rebellion in heaven. After his defeat, he is cast down to earth and eventually thrown into the lake of fire, where he will be tormented for eternity. This imagery presents Satan not as a ruler of hell, but as a prisoner destined to suffer divine punishment. The New Testament describes Satan as a figure with power over the earthly realm, influencing human behavior and moral corruption. However, it does not describe him as the ruler of hell. Hell remains a place of punishment under God's authority, not a domain granted to Satan. The idea of Satan as a fallen angel became central to his identity as the ruler of hell, but this concept was shaped more by interpretation than by direct scripture. Early Christian theologians linked Satan's identity to two Old Testament passages that were not originally about Satan. The first comes from the book of Isaiah, which describes the fall of the Babylonian king. The king's pride and desire to ascend to heaven are interpreted by early Christians as symbolic of Satan's rebellion. The Latin translation of this passage refers to the fallen figure as Lucifer, which became associated with Satan as a name representing his corrupted state. The second passage is found in the book of Ezekiel. It describes the king of Tyre as a figure who was originally pure and beautiful, but who became corrupt due to pride and was cast down from the mountain of God. Early Christian thinkers interpreted this as a symbolic reference to Satan's original perfection as an angel and his subsequent fall from grace. Origen and Augustine expanded on these interpretations. They argued that Satan was originally a high-ranking angel who was corrupted by pride and defiance. His rebellion led to his expulsion from heaven, after which he became the leader of the fallen angels. This established a foundation for the belief that Satan's fall resulted in his confinement to hell. However, at this stage, Satan was still seen as a prisoner of hell, not as its ruler. The idea of Satan as the ruler of hell took shape during the medieval period, influenced primarily by two major works of literature. Dante's Inferno, written in the early 14th century, depicted hell as a structured underworld divided into 9 concentric circles, each representing a different category of sin and punishment. At the center of hell, Dante placed Satan, a massive grotesque figure with bat-like wings, frozen in a lake of ice. Satan is not portrayed as an active ruler, but as a passive figure imprisoned in the very heart of hell. However, Dante's structured vision of hell created the impression that Satan's presence defined hell's nature and hierarchy. Even though he was depicted as a prisoner, his symbolic position at the center of hell gave him an implied authority over the damned. John Milton's Paradise Lost transformed Satan from a monstrous figure into a tragic anti-hero. Milton's Satan is intelligent, charismatic, and persuasive. After being cast out of heaven, he declares that it is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. This statement establishes the concept of hell as a kingdom over which Satan has control. Milton's Satan is not merely a prisoner of hell. He is portrayed as a ruler who accepts his punishment as a form of freedom and autonomy. Milton's portrayal of Satan as a complex and morally ambiguous figure influenced the way Satan was perceived in Western culture. He was no longer simply a symbol of evil. He became a figure of rebellion and tragic ambition. This marked a shift from the medieval idea of Satan as a passive prisoner to a figure who consciously embraces his role as the ruler of hell. Satan's transformation from a biblical adversary to a ruler of hell continued through the Gothic and Romantic periods. In Goethe's Faust, Satan appears as Mephistopheles, a cunning and manipulative figure who tempts Faust with knowledge and power. This portrayal reflects the growing association of Satan with intellectual corruption and human ambition. Satan has evolved from a monstrous figure into a complex symbol of rebellion and moral conflict. He embodies both human weakness and the desire for autonomy. Christian doctrine remains divided on the question of Satan's role in hell. The Catholic Church teaches that hell is under God's authority, not Satan's. Eastern Orthodox Christianity holds that Satan is bound and tormented in hell rather than ruling it. In Orthodox tradition, Satan is depicted as a dark, twisted figure with torn wings and scarred skin, chained and writhing in pain amid flames and smoke. His once glorious form is now deformed, symbolizing his fall and eternal punishment. In contrast, Protestant reformers like Martin Luther emphasized Satan's influence over the earthly realm rather than hell itself, seeing him as a manipulator of human affairs. Despite these theological differences, the image of Satan as hell's ruler has endured. The structured hierarchy of hell, presented in Inferno, and the tragic defiance of Satan in Paradise Lost created a powerful narrative that shaped Western imagination. Satan does not rule hell according to Christian doctrine. However, the idea of Satan as hell's ruler persists as a cultural and symbolic construct, a reflection of humanity's attempt to define and personify the nature of evil. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content about mythology and history. If you know any other interesting stories or interpretations about Satan, or if there's something I might have missed, let me know in the comments. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to share them below. Thanks for watching. Yours truly, Mythos, the Historian.